right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Brian Hazio, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. Beautiful day here in Toronto. Sunny skies, blue skies, not a cloud in the sky. No rain, no downpour of rain. You're in Edmonton, Noodles. You made it. You made it to Game 3 of the Cup Final before the Florida Panthers made it to Game 3 of the Cup Final.
I don't know, guys. I wanted to ask your advice right away on this because you had the off day. Why wouldn't you have flown in yesterday? I
don't get it, man.
You're playing with fire here. They're playing with fire.
There's two trains of thought here. And, you could speak to this about Colorado. Like sometimes with Colorado, the altitude, people are like, to hell with it. We're not going to deal with it. We're just going to fly in and play. But here, the extra day off, I thought, okay, everyone's going to travel yesterday, get in, do media, settle in and all that, settle into the time zone. I found out today that the Florida Panthers have not played out of the Eastern time zone since March 12th. They've been on the East Coast for 3 months because Tampa, Boston, all of that. It's I don't know. Honestly, I was thinking about it before too. Like sometimes when you have some adversity, guys just they go and play, and they're pros, and they're in the Stanley Cup
Noodles,
final.
why wouldn't you get there yesterday? Practice there today. I
agree.
Look, teams can do whatever they want. Maybe they're smarter than us, but it's like,
where's that?
What did no one have? No one have a radar? They knew that was coming.
It's flash flooding. I mean, you guys, we've all been in South Florida in June. It can come out of nowhere, but you would think that would be a consideration. And the Panthers, if you're not aware of this, they're stuck in Fort Lauderdale. My understanding is they're not flying out for hours, and they'll get out tonight. They'll get up there, but there's a chance, they land in Edmonton after midnight local time. That's after 2 a.m. Eastern time, and you're going to be inside of, 18 hours of puck drop on Game 3 of the Cup Final. And here's what I'm willing to guarantee.
6 o'clock start here, too, right?
Right.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, 8 Eastern, 6 p.m. local. Here's what I'm willing to guarantee. The league, and this is on the league as much as it's on the Florida Panthers, they will implement a new rule. You don't control your travel anymore. I guarantee you that's going to happen in the Cup Final. You have 2 days off, and you're risking not getting there. They'll get there, but it's amateur hour because this is a big production. This is about media. This is about promotion. People in Edmonton, they want to see Tkachuk. They want to see Barkov. They want to see the Panthers. And the idea that the Florida Panthers are controlling this, and they're not alone. Every team does this. But you can't – this to me is silly, and it's easily avoidable. Yeah. And the NHL is going to have to mandate you fly the day – there's a reason you got 2 days off in between the game. Get to the city you're supposed to get to.
Well, that would be the whole point of having that extra day is to get there yesterday, practice today, and play the game tomorrow. I don't know why. I don't think they're doing anything malicious or stupid or they don't want to deal with the media. It just seems stupid why they wouldn't do that. I don't know.
You're just risking trouble. You're risking an issue with the plane. You're risking weather like this. Anything could pop up where if you have an extra day and the NHL knows what the life of travelers is all about. You guys lived it for a long time. You have to be aware of all that kind of stuff. And it's not the Panthers didn't know this was coming, and they're just doing the same thing every team in the league does. We want to sleep in our own bed, we want to practice at our facility, we want to deal with our media and our fan base, and we'll fly up when we have to fly up. That's why I don't even blame Florida, and it's a random occurrence, it's a weather issue. This is as much on the NHL as far as I'm concerned, not making sure they realize you got to get up there. Fly up so you're available. It should have been a mandatory
travel day yesterday. It should have just been
mandatory travel day yesterday. We'll set you up in the hotels. You'll have a practice facility available to you, and you have to do media in the new market. Edmonton's popping, right? You're there, Noodles. Yeah. They're happy their team's there, and maybe there's a competitive advantage where if you're in Edmonton, you're loving this right now. But there's also a marketing component to this. The idea that these guys are not going to do media, and I'll bet you tomorrow they'll cancel the morning skate. And when are you going to talk to Barkov? After the game tomorrow night? When are you going to hear from Tkachuk and Ekblad? And I don't know.
It'll be after the game. You're right.
Yeah,
there might be select availability in the morning, but if they have an optional, let's see how it unfolds. I just thought it was a bit weird. I heard also something today. The Oilers traveled yesterday, but their plane had to stop to gas in Kansas City. Like,
yeah, the major league plane.
I don't like.
What kind
I
of
think
bird
just,
are they flying on here?
I just heard that an hour ago. Like you're like, okay, like did they not have a big enough plane? Like I know Florida's. Their plane will make it direct. Like,
yeah.
I know it's a long ways away, and I get
it's
that.
Not
but
that
it's
long,
like,
though. You're not flying to Brisbane.
I almost made a smart-ass comment in my Sports Center here. We were talking about it. I go, like, did they stop to see Travis Kelce or Taylor Swift? Like, what?
Right.
Kansas City's kind of halfway. You're stopping to gas up. Like, that's a long day.
Yeah, that is.
You got to land and then take off. So there is a reason why. Like, yesterday
when I was in Carolina,
Noodles, crazy,
and
man.
I don't know why, we always had to stop in Nebraska when we were going cross country. Like, whenever we went to Los Angeles, it was stop in Nebraska to get fuel. I'm like, what are we doing?
Size of the planes. You're right. Like, you're going coast to coast.
But this wasn't a Mickey Mouse plane. This thing was loaded. It was gorgeous. All private seats, food, everything. But it's
gas is expensive. Maybe it's cheap.
We got to touch down in Nebraska here to get some fuel. I'm like, what the hell are we doing?
Cheaper in Nebraska. We're going to save some.
I don't know.
Save some cost here.
There was some weird, like I say, that was the two things that stood out for me. Is like, okay, Edmonton had a long day, no problem, but they did it on the designated day off, the travel day. Like, and I still thought it was weird. I'm reading on the plane, the media coming out of Florida. It's like, yeah, Barkov's taking a regular. I'm like, they're skating in Florida this morning.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I think they're really
bizarro world, man.
They could really regret this.
Yes.
I mean, again, it's out of their control, the weather, but that's always the case. You guys always say if you're on time, you're late. On time is 15 minutes early.
Yes.
It's the same thing with traveling. Like the idea of them walking into a hotel in Edmonton at 3 a.m. when you've got Game 3 of the Cup final. This isn't a preseason game. Like, what are you thinking? And like players have routines. They're probably like, "What the hell are we doing here, guys?"
Dude,
and I'm sure the Oilers. Same thing.
I swear to God, Hayes, if that travel schedule had came across my desk as a player, and I've been in the league a long time, I would have grabbed the captain, the 2 assistants, and said, let's go talk to the coach and train. This is stupid. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 days. Let's get acclimated to Edmonton. Let's go. Let's have a team dinner somewhere, in the hotel, something. Get a practice in the barn. Get familiar with that. Let defensemen shoot the puck in the corner. Whatever we got to do. But we're not going there the day before the game. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
And the time zone, like you mentioned, Noodles. Like it's not massive, but it is. It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours behind. Like, it's a body clock thing, too.
Well, if you're not going to skate in the morning, then, again, you get up, you've got your game time routine. It's a 6 o'clock start here, like, which is 8 Eastern. I get it. And their body's used to that. I thought that was a bit weird. But you know what? This is the other thing, too. You can't use it as an excuse. Like, Edmonton can't come out soft and go, you know what, they're going to be tired. Like, Florida, they know how to play hockey, and they are up and they've got the hammer right now.
It may not affect them. It may not.
You're right. It might not affect them whatsoever. And if Edmonton thinks, they got in late and they're going to be tired and this is our game, then that's on Edmonton. Because I will say this. I got here late to some of the media and stuff of that, but Edmonton said all the right things. I was just chatting with Dregs earlier. Dregs was like, these guys, apparently their room was wide open. Everyone was available. Everyone, they did the full media today. And yes, they're saying the right things, but you can say all the right things. What you got to do is do all the right things, and that's the difference. You can win a press conference. How many times do we see teams that win press conferences and then they don't go and back it up on the ice or the court or the field? Like, that's the thing. Like, Edmonton had a good media day today. That doesn't mean anything. They got to win a game.
But it does speak to some confidence.
Though, guys, if this series flips where it's like after the next game, everyone's like, oh, the Oilers are back in it. Watch out. Them not going up there early is just going to be ahead of the conversation, Hayes.
It can be, for sure. I mean, everything can matter in retrospect, right? We're going through it in the NFL right now with Aaron Rodgers. It's a mini camp in June, right? Like, is it really going to matter? Probably not. But if they choke out of the gate and they're brutal, guess what's coming up? Aaron Rodgers didn't care. He didn't show up in mandatories. His mind's elsewhere. Right. This is a circus atmosphere. And it's the same thing with the Panthers. You're right. If the Oilers come out flying tomorrow which they've done the last couple of games. I guess they didn't really the other night. They were being outshot 6-0. They scored on their first shot. But game one, they did come out flying. And if they pot too quick on Bob and Bob looks rusty and the Panthers look asleep, this is going to come back and be a question mark. Like, did that flip the series? Maybe it was going to happen anyway, but the Panthers put themselves in a precarious position by practicing today and then flying out. That's another thing. Like, if you knew the weather was coming, fly out at 7 a.m. this morning. Get the boys up and get out at 4 a.m. if you have to. I don't know what you're allowed to do in terms of getting out. Jump on a bus and get up to Orlando and fly out. You've got to get out of Florida, and they haven't. And I can only imagine what the players are saying. Like, that'll be interesting. It speaks to their confidence. Like, are they starting to get a bit squirrely?
They would have had to sign off on it, Bri.
No, I know, but I'm saying now that this is their reality. Not 2 days ago. Now that they're sitting there waiting, like, are they starting to freak out? Are they starting to panic? I'm not sure. We might find out on that reporting. And conversely, I'd love to be a fly on the wall on the plane with Edmonton down 2-0 saying we're landing in Kansas City for gas. I'd love to hear some of the vets and what they had to say about that.
That's the semantics of the world, but you're right. Like, we've had to do that. When I played for I think we were in Minnesota. We were doing a Florida Calgary trip or something crazy, and we had to stop in North Dakota for gas. And I think the planes, what it is probably the weight of the plane.
Why is it the crappiest cities ever for gas?
Well, it's stayed halfway through, whatever. I don't know, but I've done it before. I just thought to myself, like, when you're, again, in the Cup final, like, small details matter, right? Like, that's my whole chat today on SportsCenter was critical errors, small details. Like, the Oilers feel like game one, it was two mistakes that cost them, really. Those were two missed errors, two pucks that ended up in the back of their net where, Bennett did some great work, but that's Nurse, that's CC missing, that's Kane, all of that type of stuff. And to me, if you're in the Cup final, there should be no stone unturned as far as everything, semantics, everything, where the guys just need to show up and play hockey. Everything else needs to be taken care of. And I don't know. They still,
to our knowledge, have not flown out of Florida. And, they had a media availability scheduled, and that's not going to happen. I mean, that's pretty clear if you're not there, unless they're going to Zoom from the airport. Bettman's going to have to own this too. The league is going to have to step in and say, no, we can't accept this anymore. This is the way it's going to work. Teams are going to travel on the same schedule, or at least if you have 2 days off, you got to get up there on the first day. Like that should have been thought of in the past. Again, it may not matter based on what happens tomorrow night, but it's an interesting story that the Panthers are down there. And the floods, like these flash floods are legit. Like it is pouring down there. So them getting out is a question mark over the next number of hours. So we will track that. As for the Panthers, like you mentioned, they practiced today, and there's Barkov out there looking like $1 million, flying around doing his thing. And listen, he took a bad hit. He left the game. I'm not sure. We never got an answer as to why, was a spotter keeping him out because he didn't return. That wouldn't be surprising. It was a head shot, he took a shot in the head. But he looks fine now. And the whole post-game commentary about not being happy and we don't know what's up, like that seemed likely it was a sell. Like we're trying, if you can sell it and get Draisaitl suspended, you might as well, right when they find out he's not. Like this guy didn't even miss a skate. Darnell Nurse isn't skating today. Kane's not skating. Barkov's out there leading stretch. Like he's totally fine for the game tomorrow night. It's a good sign,
man, for them.
That's great for them. Good. It's great for the Panthers, but not so much for the Oilers. If you're hoping, maybe you knocked a guy out. But he's going to be there. He'll be ready to play. And by all accounts, everyone's accounted for in Florida. It's more about Edmonton today, right? Like Nurse didn't take the skate. I think he'll play. Kane didn't take the skate. He hasn't been skating basically the whole playoffs. I think he'll play, but I'm not convinced he will.
You got to talk to Nurse and say, look, man, like, are you going to be able to, like, we love the attitude and approach where it's all do anything to play, but if you're going to go out there and you got to give us 2 shifts and you can't, like,
that was weird the other night.
It was because the guy's he's an old school guy, wanted to stay on the bench, and you want everyone to have that attitude where it's like, I'll do anything to play. But if it ultimately turns into I think I can do this, but it might only be 2 shifts. What good are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're
If
right.
You're just
now
taking
you're
a body off
shorthanded.
the bench. Yeah.
And it forces Bouchard to play 31 minutes the other night. Like, that's what happened. So, I agree. Unless they go 11-7 and say we're going to dress 7D because we don't trust that Nurse can be 100% and give you that type of minutes. Oh, that's where you put CC in, you dress 11-7. And if Nurse can't go, then you still got 6 because you can. Like, look at the Oilers the other night. You got Fogle, he gets kicked out, and Kane can't go. So now you're down to 10 forwards, and then Nurse can't play. So you got 5D. Now, listen, that's not an excuse. You got other players that need to play, but you can't start the game like that with question marks. I would argue if Evander Kane is not to a point where he feels like he can have his best game of the playoffs, I might move past him for one game.
Yep.
Because I think what you need is your best, the guys who are healthy that can give them your best. Like Corey Perry, by all accounts, is coming back in regardless. So Corey Perry, they need to get some greasy grit in front of the net, all of that type of stuff. You can insert him. He's not going to be shy to get there. But it's, who's coming out, what's going on there. Right now I saw the second line looks like McLeod, Holloway, and Draisaitl. So that would say to me that Kane's probably coming out, or they're going to maybe slide him down onto a fourth line and go, if you can give us something great. If not, then, we're going to go with kind of the.
Yeah, I don't think you can live like that anymore. And Knoblauch has proven in the past, like, he's willing to move off guys. He's put Perry in and out multiple times. Yeah. CC's still out. He is maneuvered. And, yeah, if Kane can't go, if Nurse can't go. And what's interesting is Darnell Nurse, has taken a lot of heat out there. And the stats indicate he's worthy of a lot of criticism. He's been on for a lot of goals throughout the playoffs, a lot of goals. But watch what you wish for, because the replacement probably isn't going to be better. Now if he can't play, he can't play. You got to replace him. Like the other night, I credit him for sticking around, and then he plays like a random shift in the third, which I found very strange.
10 minutes left or something.
10 minutes into the third, he goes out and gives them a shift. I'm like, what is happening? This guy hasn't played in an hour. And he's out there giving them shifts.
That's where you can really get buckled out there, man.
Yes.
Stiff as hell. Oh, my God.
You get stuck on for an icing, and like Barkov or Bennett comes over the bench, and you're chasing it. Good luck.
It's a tough look.
It is a tough look. Yeah. So, a lot of question marks with Edmonton. The only ones with Florida is them actually getting there, and they'll get there tonight. It's just a matter of when. But it speaks to, your hair being on fire if you're the Oilers right now, and the Panthers, it's like the only thing that can stop you is bad weather.
Yeah.
That's
and
kind
some
of
guy
what it
sent
feels
in
like
a tweet,
right
Hayes, and it said there was weather warnings 2 days ago that this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew it, and then the tweet said the league in Florida dropped the ball. And
right. Any golfers on that team? Like, if you golf, you study the app. Study the weather app. Like,
is there an app that tells you what's going on?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm tracking
by the hour.
Yeah, by the hour. Wow. I'm like, I'm teeing off here. I need to know where these clouds are. Is the wind coming in from the northwest? Like, I know everything, and I'm just trying to get 18 in. These guys are trying to get to Edmonton to play Game 3 of the Cup final. Like, mix in a weather app down there, please. But, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. And, there's a lot to get into today in terms of what's at stake for the Oilers, what's at stake for the Panthers, McDavid, Draisaitl, how Knoblauch handles this. We'll get into it. We got our PGA picks brought to you by TaylorMade later in the hour for the U.S. Open. Our buddy Scott Vail, right? Good Canadian boy, big Leaf fan. Keegan Bradley's caddy. I think he's going to take the iPad out and walk around Pinehurst and join us later in the hour. I think it's going to be a FaceTime with Scotty, and we're just going to see what's up out there. Cool. Pinehurst number 2. And I look forward to that. We got role play level of concern today. I got a couple of slides. We're going to slide into some DMs today. We got a lot cracking this afternoon. Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a good one. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Ray Ferraro will join us. Ray's coming up just after 5. I assume Ray's in Edmonton. Obviously calling the games for ESPN. Game 3 tomorrow night. We've got role play level of concern in about an hour. My buddy Scott Vail coming up later this hour, FaceTiming around Pinehurst like Johnson Wagner. I saw Johnson Wagner walking the fairways with Harry Higgs today, and I was tearing up. Like, those are just two of my favorite guys, right? The stash, the khakis on Johnson.
What were they talking about?
I don't really know, to be honest. Just, Harry back in the big dance, U.S. Open. He's been on the Corn Ferry. He had to qualify to get in. He's won a couple of tournaments recently. He had the same look he always does. Chest out, shades on, looking good, feeling good.
How did he qualify with those 2 Corn Ferry wins?
No, he had to win the qualifier. Like, he had to get in, like all these guys are. He was in, like, Maryland or something like that, and he went to a playoff, and he got in because a lot of these guys get in. Remember, Adam Scott was in a playoff, and he lost, but now he's actually in. Like, there's qualifiers all over the place. You got to win them. A lot of them are like top 4 get in, top 8 get in. He got in via playoff. So Harry Higgs is in the U.S. Open. He didn't just automatically get in. He had to play his way in, which is pretty cool. Wow. And kind of the nature of the Open in general. So, Scott Vail coming up later this hour. Jay's in action this afternoon. Not going so well, but you see John Schneider suggested that Joey Votto is getting closer, and there's been no updates on Votto. I haven't seen him. I haven't
heard his name.
I have barely heard his name.
Dude, I've seen him he went to the season opener in Tampa as a fan.
Yes. Yeah, he was in the stands and tweeting about it, and I'm presuming he's been down in Dunedin ever since, rehabbing and working on whatever he's been working on. But that's one hell of an ankle roll. Like, did he break his ankle? That was 3 months ago. He rolled his ankle, and he's been out ever since. And I'd never heard anything about surgery. I could be wrong on this. We can maybe look it up, Doogie. But to my knowledge, it was just a bad rolled ankle, and this guy's been out for a long, long time. And
you know what? Why not? The guy can hit a baseball. I don't care how old he is. I don't care about any of that. The guy could hit a baseball.
All right.
See what he's got.
Answer me this. If Joey Votto slides into Ross Atkins' DMs, says, Rossi, I'm ready to rock. Put me in, kid. What's the answer?
Absolutely, because we hit like garbage, and we've hit like garbage from the first pitch of the season. Mm-hmm. I'm not paying you a lot of money. If you just want it to be your final year, minimum, whatever the minimum is that I can pay you, I'll do it. If you want to play in the big leagues or give it a shot, I'll do it. Absolutely. I'm tired of watching high-paid players just completely whiff at home plate. I'm tired of doing it. So if you can provide a spark, this is not the route I wanted to go, but I'll try it. It's desperation time.
Yeah, I think it's actually better for Votto to arrive at this point. Although I don't know if he's prepared to hit. I don't know what kind of action he's looking like at the plate. I know him historically, but the guy's 40 years old. He's not a young man, and he hasn't played now in quite some time. But with the team playing the way they're playing, hitting the way they're hitting, having the issues that they're having, the PR disaster, this might go above Ross. He might want to slide into Shapiro's DMs or the Rogers family and say, hey, you guys are starting to struggle here. You want to get a little buzz back in the city? You want to get some positive PR? Bring the kid back. Bring me in. Bring me in representing the city. I think that's his play.
Who would you take off the rock? Like, would that Vogelbach come out?
Probably Vogelbach.
Like, that guy is kind of hangs around.
There's not much there. Like, that's the thing. Like, Biggio, you saw it today. He was traded to the Dodgers. And I think that's the worst case scenario, because if he sticks and they get to the World Series and he's a factor, Jays fans, even though he's not been a good player, his numbers are what they are. He's a likable guy. They call him a super utility player. I'm not sure that that's a reasonable definition of what he actually does, because he doesn't really defend at any level that is, elite. He just kind of plays wherever they need to plug someone in. But his statistics at the plate have been, pretty terrible at times. So from a statistical standpoint and performance standpoint, it's not a surprise, and it's not a big hit that the Jays are taking moving off Biggio. But him going to the Dodgers, like, if he clicks there, you're going to hear him and see him every single night.
And sometimes it's easier to just click in when you've got a loaded, stacked team.
Yes.
You're just like, I just got to kind of do my thing, man.
Right. Yeah. Mix in. Just wherever you need me, guys. Couple injuries, all of a sudden you're playing every day. He starts to contribute a little bit here or there. I don't think he's going to morph into something they're really going to miss in terms of the stats. But in terms of him being in front of you and possibly having an impact, I think Jays fans, in my opinion, it probably couldn't be worse. Dodgers or Yankees. Like, that's where you want him going to, like, Arizona or, Kansas City. Just get out. Go to the White Sox. No one's paying attention, and let him do his thing. And I'm curious if Biggio's actually happy with that because it is such a stacked roster. Like it's going to make it more challenging for him to actually prove himself. I'm not sure how he would answer that.
He's got to love it, man. Yeah, he can win a World Series.
Top-tier team. He's
I
got
hear
an
you, but
opportunity.
he's got to play. Dude, they may keep him for a week or two and say, actually, this didn't work out.
Hey, that's all he's saying to himself. I got to find a way to play a little bit, and I could maybe hang on. Because you know what it's like for even journeymen or lesser lights that win a World Series, a Stanley Cup, an NBA title. It's like they find a spot for the rest of their career. They're like, because you know why? Somebody goes, that guy won a ring.
Yeah, you're right. It changes your whole reputation and your legacy and who you are.
What's the alternative, though? Like, if nobody grabs him, then he's just playing in the minors, right? Like
more or less. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of cool to get grabbed by one of the best teams in the majors. And if you can find something, find a role, be useful to them, all of a sudden it's a great story. Now, you don't want it. It's not comparable like Alejandro Kirk to Marino type of thing. Like it's, there's nobody coming the other way where you've given up. But if you give up on this kid, which, they moved on from, and he ends up being something, it looks bad, right?
Well, that's all I'm saying. Like, you make decisions. The decision makes sense based on the way he's been playing and where they're at. But it's, Leaf fans are going through it with Hyman, and there's Connor Brown, and, it's always – we always do that to ourselves in Toronto, right? It's, look at this guy. He goes somewhere else, and he performs. Well, he ended up on a really good team, and he found a way to mix in, and maybe that happens for Biggio, and I'm pulling for him. It'd be a cool story.
Right.
All right, what else do we have here? McDavid slides into Chuck Knobloch's DMs. Chris Knobloch says, give me Leon and Hyman on my wing tomorrow night and play me 30 minutes. How does Knobloch respond?
I have to do it. Okay. I have to do it.
Thumbs up response? Just a thumbs up? All right, see you tomorrow night. You're playing 30.
Heart emoji plus the thumbs up plus exclamation points.
Okay.
He has to. That's their only way out of this. You might as well just load up one line and say, we got to fire this at the Florida Panthers and see if this works. I would be a little bit concerned what you're pasting together for the rest of the lineup because who knows what they're going to generate, Hayes. But as far as trying to create something, and maybe you don't have to do it for the full game, but maybe 3 or 4 times a period they're going out there. Maybe that's a lot because you only get 3 or 4 shifts. I just think there's situational stuff where you can try to get that out there.
I think it's a thumbs up too because here's the other thing. Oh, I'll just add a layer to it. You got last change, so I would come back at him and say, yes, but you're going to play 30, but I'm going to find you a 4th line shift too on a neutral zone draw. Like you're going to play 30 minutes. It's going to be with Draisaitl and Hyman, but it's also going to be with, Carrick and Perry. We're going to find you a little. You get to control that on home ice. So if there is an icing and a third pairing that gets caught out there, or you're mixing and matching, I'd find. Listen, the way the Edmonton Oilers are going to get out of this, it's not just going to be through balance and, hey, roll 4 lines. The top players have to find a way to break through. We talked about it yesterday. What has Barkov and Forsling and that group done to Kucherov, Pasternak, Zibanejad, Panarin, you name it? Now it's Draisaitl and McDavid. They've got to find a way to bust through. The way you bust through is go every second shift, every third shift, you're going out, and I'm going to find you some players to play with if it's not that line that we're going to load up.
Yeah, I think it's mandatory. You're down 2-0. You're at home. You've had 2 days off. I would do it too, especially if McDavid in this hypothetical is asking for it. So let us drag us back into this series because, you're mixing lines around. Who knows if Kane goes? Maybe Holloway chips in, maybe McLeod. These guys are capable of doing it, but ultimately it's got to be the big boys that drag them out of this. And I don't think there's any reason. Maybe 30 is a stretch in regulation, but 25, 26, you got to play these guys into the ground. You have to.
Right.
You have to play McDavid a ton. And I've appreciated his approach, the last couple of days. You referenced what they were saying today. Even a couple of days ago, him saying, I look forward to people doubting us. I like that. They're going to doubt you. Everyone's doubting you. And ultimately, actions are going to speak louder than words. But I like that approach. It's better than woe is me. It's better than, hey, we'll give it a shot. Like, it speaks to some maturity. He stepped in for Darnell Nurse a couple weeks ago. Like, McDavid looks like he's still on a mission. It hasn't gone well for him. But I'm willing to bet at some point he will separate from Panarin, Pasternak, Point, Kucherov, because this is a great example of why he's so great.
It's better than the other nonsense we've heard in this market where it's like, and I don't want to brag on John Tavares, but he got into like execution and like just stuff where you're like, what are you talking about?
Lessons. Man? It's a lesson for Game 3. There was no lessons. It was
where McDavid is he's been around long enough, and so is JT. Where it's just like, I look forward to people trying to screw with us because screw it, we'll fight, and that's it. That's all he got. Like that's all he got to say.
I mean, when you lose in the first or second round, you can have a different speech. Like, these guys can taste it. They're 4 wins away. Florida's 2 wins away. They can taste it. So, regardless of what you say, I mean, you're sitting there and you should be wired. That's what I think what frustrated me the other night about watching a couple plays where it's missed assignments. Like, you can't – like, I get it working hard. Just sometimes a guy out-battles you or makes a great play. But getting out of the way of a hit in the Stanley Cup Finals, like, that's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
These are things – not blocking a shot or only half-assed doing it because you don't want to get hit with the puck. That happens in November. That doesn't happen in mid-June in the Stanley Cup. Like, that's the stuff where I think if the Edmonton Oilers have to figure out a way, or they're going to figure out a way to get back in this series – they got to play for keeps like Florida does and win some of those battles, but block those shots. Take a hit to make a play. It can't be cutesy. It's got to be straight line
all out now. And even McDavid referencing specifically with the power play, but it's got to be like road hockey. Like they're so aggressive, they come at you. You got to use your instincts as opposed to just relying on the formula that is applied over the course of a year when it comes to a power play unit. And that's got me kind of jacked up for what we could see tomorrow night. Like, I kind of like the idea of 97. Not that I think he hasn't had the brakes on. Like, I don't think he's wired like that anyway. But they have reason, and they have had reason for a long time to trust their power play. It's been historically great. They've run into it here. They ran into it against Dallas, and it's carried over against Florida. The idea of them saying, you know what, screw it, let's go out and play road hockey here and try to figure something out creatively. If that works, it's going to look pretty amazing, and we'll find out tomorrow night. Rays coming up. We got more sliding into the DMs later this afternoon. Role play level of concern coming up. Our picks for the U.S. Open. Scott Vail will join us live from Pinehurst number 2. Got to always say 2, right? Can't just be Pinehurst.
Drop balls? Is he going to drop balls in the green?
I'm hoping, but I don't know. I mean, we should have asked him that. We'll ask him. We'll say, do you have access to a golf ball? Can you do that for us live on this show? Right? This could be groundbreaking stuff. This is Emmy-worthy stuff that we're about to supply.
Playing lessons on OverDrive.
Yes, absolutely. Scotty Vail coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Ray Ferraro coming up in about 20 minutes. Live from Edmonton. The Cup Final continues tomorrow night. Jay's in action this afternoon. We'll be tracking that. We're tracking the flight plan for the Panthers. Emily Kaplan reporting that it's her understanding they may have taken off. Yeah. So we'll see. We're not quite certain. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. There's our boy, Scotty Vail, live from Pinehurst number 2. What's up, Scotty? How you feeling down there?
Well, what's going on, boys? I was struggling to find a nice place with a good backdrop for you, so I found the bottom end of the range, and there's nobody down here late on a Wednesday, so it's all good down here.
I love it, man. So everyone's buzzing about how tough this place is actually going to play, right? Like the USGA is just going to torture these guys, including your boy Keegan. Are you buying that? Like, are you guys prepared for that kind of carnage or what?
I was buying it a couple of days ago. Yesterday it was about as hard as I've seen it. And then today they threw some water on him. They must have been getting some sniffs of some guys saying how unplayable it was going to be. So I was buying it yesterday, but I'm cautious. Because they can change this thing in a heartbeat and lay off the watering. So today was actually softer, and the greens were probably about a foot slower. So There's going to be carnage. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be a difficult test. So, but today was softer than it was yesterday. So let's see what tomorrow brings.
Scotty, what does it take for something like that to change? Does it take like certain players or just an amount of players to bitch and complain about it? Or what is the USG, like what does it take for them to kind of throw some water on the greens? Is it like Tiger Woods saying this is ridiculous? Like what does it take?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think there's enough murmurs. Actually, Keegan had said it to me today. He was like, I think they must have gotten sniff of enough of the boys, because Keegan said to me yesterday when we were playing Scott, this is like, I'm putting it off greens. Like I've never seen in my entire caddy career, guys, world-class players putting it off greens, like nonstop. I bet between 10 and 20 times we putted it off a green or chipped it off a green. So I'm sure they get wind of that and getting guys complaining about it. And if it's a group effort, the more the merrier. So they've got to be really careful here. The weather's going to be nice. It's going to be dry. I don't think there's any moisture, any rain or anything. So they've got to be careful in where they put some of these pins. So I think guys complaining collectively probably threw a little more rain on it, and they can always, move it around as they see, Saturday and Sunday.
With Scott Vail live from Pinehurst number 2, U.S. Open beginning tomorrow. We'll get to our picks later this afternoon. Obviously, we're, detailing the greens in particular, like you mentioned, how tough they are. But what about the rest of the course? Like historically, the U.S. Open plays nasty basically everywhere outside of the tee box. Is that how you're seeing this course set up?
Yeah, it's a different U.S. Open style course, right? Because normally it's 5-6 inches of rough, and now it's, this waste area or native area, they would call it probably. So it's completely different than any other U.S. Open. The last time I was here 10 years ago, there weren't nearly as many plants. Local guy, privy to the situation here, had said for 2 months straight, they had guys, they were planting between 500 and 700 plants a day here. So it looks like when we came here on Monday and Tuesday, it looked like, whoa, everything looks a little bit thicker in that, that sandy waste area. We played Tuesday with Dustin Johnson and Keegan, and both of them, Dustin was like, oh, bro, man, I don't remember it being like this much of this stuff. Like it's greener, it's a lot more. And I hadn't known that they had added all that stuff. So you got to just kind of mentally prepare. You're not going to get a good lie in this. Like 10 years ago, you could get it up on the green or like advance it. Like there's going to be, I would plan on that being the worst case situation. Like your foot's on some sort of bush. You might have to play backwards. There's going to be some carnage. But that being said, the fairways are wide enough that, it's more wide than any other U.S. Open. It's a cool golf course. I love it.
So, Scotty, when we're watching your interactions on the fairway, you're giving your guy a number. Is it like that's the number and it's center of the green? Don't even think about going at these pins. Like, is that what's your play as a caddy in a U.S. Open? Is it like as many center of the greens as you can? Obviously, sometimes these guys are so good you got to be aggressive. But what's the play when you're middle of the fairway and you got a good number you like?
Yeah, so I'll show you my yardage book. So this is just like a picture of the green in my yardage book. So I have like where is it? There it is. So I'll have like a circle inside the green, and anything outside that circle is gonna mess off the green down, where you're chipping it or putting it or something. So I think, you got to look at that stuff and figure out where you want to land it. You have to play away from the pins. There's just nothing. 10 to 12 feet from par a lot of the times is going to be good. When you're out of position, you're not going to be able to even get it up and down and hit it, like your standard chip in, kick in distance. So, yeah, you've got to look at these pins and like take them out of the equation and then work from, if the pin's on the right side, then move your shot to the left side of the green. So where, that little circle is that I had in my book. So that's a different dynamic, and then you'll have to think about where your best leave is as well, because it's diabolical here. It's crazy.
With Scott Vail, who's live from Pinehurst number 2, Keegan Bradley, of course, big part of the weekend, and Scotty will be caddying for Keegan like he's been doing for a long time. And, we've chatted multiple times over the course of the year, and every event is different. Every event has a different kind of buzz and vibe to it. But the U.S. Open historically has had the biggest crowds, really loud, respectful, not waste management stuff, but really, really loud. How does that factor into your preparation, and how does Keegan like that? I mean, he seems to be the kind of American poster boy that plays to the crowd a little bit. Like, is he looking for crazy crowds, and might that help him this week?
I don't think really the crowds come, like, for a guy like Keegan's nature, he's not fussed about them either way, whether they're loud or not loud. I mean, a couple of years ago when he was in his hometown of Brookline, he fed off them because, he was the Massachusetts boy growing up, playing golf in around where that golf course is. But I don't think, like Keegan in particular, he would love it, if there's, crowds and out there cheering for him. We played the PGA with Tiger and Adam Scott the first 2 days, and it was Tiger's crowds. They were cool as can be, and it was awesome being around them. You have to deal with a little bit of stuff like that, but that's part of your job, and he's not fussed about that stuff either way. Some guys are super fussed and picky, and you can't breathe, and they can hear you or get thrown off. But no, he's pretty calm, cool, and collected with that stuff. Even though he looks like he's a nervous wreck out there, stuttering and but no, he's good. He's in control.
Scotty, you've been on the range when the Tiger vibe, when Tiger was in his prime and he wheeled out there in the range, it was just like nothing else. I'm sure you would agree with that. What kind of vibe is Scotty Scheffler bringing to the golf course when he shows up and just wheels around? Is everyone like, it's never going to be the Tiger vibe, but what's his like, Scotty Scheffler's?
That's a good question. He obviously he doesn't have the vibe. Nobody's got the vibe like Tiger. But it was funny. I saw him 2 days ago. I was out walking the golf course, and him and Teddy were just going out on the first hole with like a couple, sandwich, lob wedge, and a putter. And there was nobody out there. Nobody knew that they were going out there. And before you knew it, there was hordes of, reporters, cameramen, everything inside. Before you knew it, he had, 50 media people inside the ropes, following him. So he gets it. He doesn't get it as much as like the crowds of people outside, like coming to follow him. I think they're starting to realizing how great, this run is. It's historical. It's, I don't see an end in it as well. So he gets it, but he gets more of the media. Everybody, wants a piece of him, pulling him, wants an interview or just wants to, take videos of him and stuff like that. But nothing like Tiger. Like today on the range, we're warming up and hitting balls and practicing. Tiger's the range kind of, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little hill and it goes up to another level of the range. And Tiger, we were at the far left and Tiger's at the far right, so he was in essence warming up next to him. And all of a sudden there's like Joe Blow with his camera and his iPhone out filming right next to us. They're all sneaking up and getting closer and closer. Before you know it, they're like circling Tiger Woods on the range. So he still, he moves the needle, and everybody wants to get a photo or a video and, to say they've seen it and done it. So, but yeah, Scotty, people are starting to realize how great this is. And they're starting to, but nothing in comparison to Tiger.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Well, I don't think it's, anyone should be expecting anyone to ever touch those levels, but the way he's playing right now, it's lights out. But it's going to be a fun weekend. Your guys playing great, too. Keegan had a good week last week, and we're pulling for you. We appreciate you doing this, Scotty. We know it's a really busy time of year. You're literally at work on the range. So thanks for plugging in, buddy, and we're tracking you all weekend. Good luck.
All right, thanks, boys. I just need O-Dog to stay away from, picking him in the pool so he doesn't shoot 78, 80 on the weekend anymore. I was awfully hopeful last week, and then I was figuring out what was going on. I remembered that O-Dog picked us, so
yeah.
Come on.
I'll stay away, buddy. I'll stay away, brother.
Good point.
Just 1 week, man. Just give me a chance. 1 week, man. Come on.
All right, Scott.
I'll lock him in. I got him. I'll take him. You can guarantee that. It's coming up.
Come on.
You got it. Thanks, Scotty.
Thanks, Scotty.
There's Scott Vail. I like Keegan this week, man. I like him a lot. Place like this, and I mean, it's so tough to call because Scheffler is what he is. I think DeChambeau's going to have a good week, but guys are going to come out of nowhere, and if you can stay around even par, you're going to make the weekend have a chance. That's for sure.
He's a great guy. Yeah. Like you saw how complex that caddy book is. Mm-hmm. And when I go to Georgia to play golf, the last time I was there, Scotty popped out of his house, which is right off of the first fairway. And one of my best buddies said, Scotty, can you give me like the tour read of this putt? So he starts putting fingers up, and he points to a piece on the green. And he said, hit it. It was a really difficult putt. And he said, putt it right over that mark right there. and my buddy just drilled it right in the middle. He was so fired up that Scotty Vale gave him a tour read.
Wow.
But you saw that book, man. That book looked like there was a lot of business going on in that thing.
Yeah. Big
Serious,
time, man.
yeah.
Big time. And a lot of it is simplifying things. Like you said, like this is where you got to hit. Everything else, you're screwed.
Yes.
And I love the U.S. Open for that. I do. I like seeing these guys struggle. I like to see the mental grind. I like to see them get pissed off because.
Do you like seeing them chopping it, though?
Yes, I do. I do. Once a year. That's the Open, man. It's
I
tough.
know, but when guys have tough days and they're chopping it across the green, back across the green like a 20 handicap, I
hear you. But it makes the triumph that much more significant. The last man standing, that guy had to grind to get it.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see that. And like Scotty said, Keegan was rolling going into the weekend. It kind of fell apart at the Memorial. The week before, though, he was great at the Charles Schwab. Played well at the PGA. I like where he's at going in. We'll see where Keegan's at. He'll be coming up in the picks. I guess I'm taking him. Put it down.
Yeah.
I'm taking him later this afternoon. Ray Ferraro coming up. Role play level of concern coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.